Hey there everybody, it's Mike DiLisio, and today I'm going to do a solo review for Isle of Cats from designer Frank West and publisher City of Games. I'm not going to go into a heavy rules overview. If you want to get a good idea on how the game played, feel free to take a look at Tom Vasel's review. I'm going to link to that in the description of this review here. What I want to do is talk a little bit about some component changes in the solo game, how the actual game round structure changes in the solo game, and then I'm going to come back here and talk about the solo experience, things like win-loss conditions, setup and teardown, and rules, and then I'll give you my overall impression of the game. So, let's head on over to the table and take a look. Okay, regarding components in the Isle of Cats solo game, there's a couple of things to consider. You don't remove any components per se. The one thing you do have to account for is your common treasures here. You want to make sure that you only have 5 of each of the common treasures, because those can potentially run out in a game, and you have to keep that as a player count consideration. The other thing that you have are all of these components. These are the added components for the solo variant. You've got 5 solo color cards, you've got solo lesson cards, you've got advanced solo lesson cards, and you've got solo basket cards, which you'll see how those work in just a few moments. When it comes to setting the game up in the solo variant, the one thing you're going to do, and I just placed them here on the boat just in the interest of space, is at the beginning, you're going to have your Oshaks, cats lined up here from 1 to 6. And you're going to flip over the first card in this solo color line. And so what this is going to do is give you a little bit of an idea of the cats that are going to give your opponent, in this case your sister that you're playing against, which cats are going to give your opponent the most points. What's interesting is in this solo game, your opponent's going to score for what's on your boat. You only have your one boat that you're going to be placing your cats on, that you're rescuing. So we know that at the end of the game, every red cat that I place on my boat is going to give my sister 5 points. And every round, we're going to reveal a new one, so we get more and more information. Whatever color this is going to give 4 points, 3, 2, and 1 at the end of the game. So I know early on that I need to be very careful about putting red cats on my boat. The other thing I'm going to do is flip over these solo lesson cards, shuffle these up, and find out how my sister is going to score based on what's on my boat. So this would be a basic game, just 3 of the regular solo lesson cards. So at the end of the game, 5 points. My sister's going to get 5 points for any rat that's visible on my boat. She's going to get 3 points for any of filled rooms that I have, and she's going to get 5 points for any lonely cat I have. So, depending on what I might draft throughout the game, I have to keep in mind, do I want to make sure all the rats are covered? Maybe I get a card that gives me 15 points for a visible rat, or 10 points, whatever the case may be. If I want to make the game more difficult, I can add in up to 4 of these advanced solo lesson cards. If I want it to be medium difficulty, I add 1 of these into the mix. If I want it to be hard difficulty, I add in 2. Very hard is 3, and expert is 4. All right? When you fill the fields, as I mentioned, make sure they're in a line from 1 to 8. What changes in the gameplay? Well, in the fishing phase, which is phase 1, nothing changes. You're going to get your 20 fish. That is your currency that you're going to use both to keep cards that you draft and to rescue cats. 3 on this side, 5 on that side of the island. So nothing changes there. In the second phase, the explore phase, in the multiplayer game, that's a drafting round. Well, you can't exactly draft when you have no one to draft with. However, you could kind of replicate the experience, and so this is how that works in the solo game. You draw 5 cards off the top of the deck. You look at them. You choose 3 to keep, and you discard 2. So let's say I kept these 3 and discarded those. Then you're going to do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I keep 3, and I discard 2. Then you just draw one off the top. All right? The second half of this, now I've got my 7 cards. So I've not exactly drafted, but I've kind of replicated that experience. The second half is exactly the same. Any of these cards I want to keep, I've got to pay for in the fish. All right, so that doesn't change at all. The third phase, reading lessons, also doesn't change. The only thing is that you can play your lesson cards face up in the solo game because it doesn't matter if other people see it. You can also play public lessons, but the scoring on them is slightly changed, okay? So reading the lessons is really no different than in the multiplayer game. Phase 4 is rescuing cats, and this is where these basket cards come in and where the game kind of changes the most, all right? So the first thing you're going to do is flip over the first solo basket card, and this is going to tell you a couple of things. The first thing you're going to do is look at the number of baskets here. In this case, it says 4 baskets. So what I'm going to do is take 3 more cards. So I'm going to have a lineup of 4 cards total based on that number. And those 3 are going to be face down. All right. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now that I've done that, we're going to be resolving the speed. In this case, there's a speed of 1. Well, I would have had to have looked at whatever cards I had been able to keep. So let's say, for example, I had been able to keep this 3 speed. That means that I've got a higher speed than the sister, and if I was purple, I'd stay here. If I had been below her in turn order, now I can switch it, and I'm rescuing first because I've got a quicker speed. So I also know which cats they're going to take on this turn. They're going to take cat 2. So if nothing changed, she'd take that cat. So if I really wanted that cat, it would behoove me to go ahead and take that now, pay the 3, take it and place it on my boat. So let's say I had done that. Now, the sister is going to take cat 2, which is now right here, because you just count from left to right. That goes away. It's going to take this common treasure right here. That's out of the game now. And that's it. Then it would be me. I'd go back. Let's say that I drafted, well, I wouldn't want that red one probably because it would give them 5 points. So let's say I took that one. Now we flip over the next card and we resolve it in a similar way. This says cat 2, rare 2. All right, so cat 2 is now over here. It takes that and it takes the rare treasure 2, which is right here. Had there not been 2, it would just take the one that's there. I would do my turn, and now you see here, cat 5 and cat 4. I would do my thing, cat 1 and cat 5, if those were still viable options. If the number doesn't exist, it will take the last one in the row. So you can see rescuing cats has a similar feel, and you do have to kind of worry about what's going to be taken out from underneath you. In phase 5, which is the rare finds phase, nothing changes. If you've got a rare finds card, you would be able to take that rare treasure, and the AI will not do anything during this turn. During the emptying the fields phase, the only thing that changes is you flip over the next solo color card, and now I know that it's the orange cats that are going to be worth 4 at the end of the game for every orange cat on my boat, and then I would do this round by round. Purple would be worth 3, green would be worth 2, and blue would be worth 1. The scoring is pretty simple. It's those points based on what's on your boat and all of their lesson cards. That's all that the scoring is for the sister, and you would compare your score versus theirs, and whoever's the winner would be the winner of the game. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a pretty good idea on how the game changes in the solo variant versus the regular variant. A little bit of extra components, not a whole lot, and a little bit of change for most of the rounds. Some of the rounds don't change at all. So, what is my overall impression of the solo experience? First of all, I want to talk about the win-loss conditions. This is a game that has a clear win-loss condition. You're playing against an AI opponent. In this case, your sister. Your sister is trying to kind of sabotage your rescuing of these cats and kind of mess up your plans a little bit. And I really like those clear win-loss conditions. I also like the fact that as the game goes on, you get more and more of an idea of what the plans are of your sister and how you can kind of circumvent those plans or mitigate those things. From the first round of the game, you know one color of cat that you kind of need to watch out for. You're going to have to probably put at least 1 or 2 of them out there, but you don't want to be putting a bunch of them because every single one, that's worth 5 points at the end of the game. So a very clear win-loss condition, and one that I think is interesting in that you learn more as the game goes on for what you need to do to be successful or not. Setup and teardown. Now, if there is something that I could mention as a potential negative is that there are a lot of components. That can be a good thing. There's a lot of cool stuff, but there's a lot to account for. And it's not a game that you're going to just set up in 2 to 3 minutes, get playing. there's a bit of sorting involved. There's a bit of kind of making sure you've got the right cards, you've got the right amount of components. You're probably looking at a good 10 minutes of setup time. And the teardown is probably a little bit quicker than that, but this is still not something you're just going to grab off your shelf and be playing within 5 minutes. That's something that you do have to keep in mind. Now, I will say that for the amount of time it takes to set up and tear down, you are getting a robust gameplay experience. Don't let the polyominoes fool you. This is a game that has a lot going on, a lot to think about, a lot of crunchy decisions, a lot of interesting decisions, a lot of varied decisions. I've played this solo a number of times, and the games have felt different depending on what cards come out, what lesson cards come out, what cards I draft, the order of the colors of the cats, the speed, the turn order. All of that is something that you have to account for in the solo game, and I really do appreciate that. I feel like they've done a great job of replicating a multiplayer experience in the solo game, and that's something that I feel is very good. The rules are clear. They are concise, and I didn't find any ambiguities at all. The rule book in general I found to be quite good, and the solo rules are in a separate section, not incorporated within, and I've mentioned before that that's not my favorite thing in the world when you try to incorporate solo rules into the middle of the regular rules. It has its own section, it's clear, the solo cards are clearly labeled, and I really wish more publishers would do this. It says on it, solo color cards, solo lesson cards. Make it as easy as possible for the people that don't want to be playing with the solo components, that they don't get confused. Or if you are looking for those solo cards, you don't have to look through any longer than you need to. It's all very clearly labeled, and for that, I appreciate. The rules are wonderfully done. What's the overall impression I have of this game? Well, I can tell you as a solo game, the Isle of Cats is terrific. It is really, really good. It plays relatively quickly. You're not spending a lot of time administering the AI's turns. You're flipping over those cards, removing cats, removing treasures, and you're thinking about your move. Most of the time in the game is puzzling out, how am I going to maximize my points? How am I going to be the most efficient at getting what I need done? And so it does a really, really good job in that sense. The most of the time that you have playing is worrying about what you're doing, not worrying about how do I administer this AI? Am I missing something here? Everything is very streamlined, straightforward, and very, very well done. I think that it provides a really good experience in the amount of time it takes to play. The ratio of decisions to gameplay is a fantastic one. And that's something that's really important to me as a solo player. I don't always have 3-4 hours to devote to a solo game. And so if I've got 45 minutes and I know I can get a gameplay experience like this in that 45 minutes, that's going to make me more likely to choose this over something else that plays in the same amount of time that really doesn't give me that level of decision making, of fun. I mean, I don't want to underestimate this. Yeah, it's puzzly. It really makes you think. You have to kind of try to be spatial and also be thinking about a little bit of your economy. How many fish am I going to keep over? It has all of those things, but on top of it, it's just fun. It's a fun game. Now, the theme may not be for you. I like cats. It's not a problem for me, but I understand that it's not for everyone. Don't let that get in your way. Really, don't lose out on a good game just because the theme may not be one that necessarily appeals to you. Give it a shot. It's a really good game. Overall, the solo version of Isle of Cats I think is fantastic, and that's why I'm giving it a seal of excellence. I'm giving it a 9. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.